You know what you've just said? You've just established that Islam is nothing from God, nothing to do with morality, nothing to establish the pinnacle, the very standard of what is morality, but is just like how any other military force would try to take over someone else's property. Masjid al-Haram, when the Muslims took over, whether the Meccans in a friendly manner let that happen or not is irrelevant. The question is, who did that belong to? How did the Muslims suddenly think it belonged to them? Every step of the way in Islam, it is the same story over and over and over again. Contra evidence, the entire religion is built.
Bring it back to its original purpose as the house of monotheism and the religion of Abraham and all the other prophets before him and since him. So that's the claim of what Masjid al-Haram is supposed to be.
I heard you. That's loud and clear. That's a standard narrative.
Yes.
Now, you understand, anyone can go around claim anything. For example, I may go around and claim I am the President of the United States. Now, when I claim such a thing, if I did claim, what would you say? You would say that something is wrong somewhere, because you know that is contrary to evidence. So this is where evidence now matters. Now, I'm going to ask you a poignant question. Please stay focused on the question. Very simply, according to history, Islam began to exist in the 7th century earliest, according to evidence. According to, let me finish. No, 7th century. Muhammad was supposed to have born in 670 AD and, 570 AD, yeah, sorry, 6th century, and yeah, you are right. So, 6th century, 570, 6th century, 7th century is when 632, 610, his ministry began, 632, he passed away, is the claim. And so 7th century is when Islam began to exist according to all evidence. Now, you tell me, what evidence have you got to claim Abraham was a Muslim?
The Bible?
Please.
Well, there are I don't know the Old Testament very well, but from what I understand in the Old Testament, there are records there about Abraham and his family going into the Arabian Peninsula, and that's where there was a spring that came up there. It's the spring of Zamzam that we believe it is, and that's where the first house of worship was built.
What record? What record
do you have? Testament.
One second. What record do you have for Abraham going into the Arabian Peninsula?
In what way? What do you mean? What kind of record?
You said there is a record in the Bible that
I don't know what the exact reference is.
No, there is. I know the Bible, and I can very honestly tell you, Abraham, according to all historical records in the Bible and elsewhere, did not go to the Arabian Peninsula. Contrary to that, you'd like to think he went there, and you'd like to think that Masjid al-Haram was built by him. So, what evidence have you got?
No, I don't know any other evidence about that.
You see, no, don't say any other. Don't say any other. You haven't given one so far.
Well, I just gave the biblical account of that.
I can give you the Bible. Which book of the Bible? Which book of the Bible?
Like I said, I can't remember the exact reference.
If you don't, I'm
just saying that that's where I've heard that there is reference made to Abraham before the coming of Islam from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. That's the other place that I know of, at least, that there is some reference made to Abraham having gone to the Arabian Peninsula.
My dear friend, here is where you need to
establish that house.
Good, thank you. Here is where you need to really listen carefully. You are saying you don't know the Bible.
Yeah.
I am saying I do know my Bible, and I am saying there is no such reference in the Bible for Abraham going into the Arabian Peninsula. It doesn't exist. Unless you're going to show me where it exists, don't assume you've given me one evidence. You haven't given any so far. And this is where I'm going to insist, please. Remember, right at the start, I said the mental illness and you are a walking demonstration. No, this is not. This is very serious, my dear
I
friend.
mean, I
One
find that a
second,
bit
let me finish.
insulting. To
I
say
know,
that
I
you're
know.
gonna
It
claim
could be
that I have a
insulting.
mental
You know, if I said I am the president of the United States, and if you said I am a little bit,
I mean, I could claim that
can
you
I,
have
can
a
I finish?
mental
Can I
illness
please
for
finish? Let me
following
finish. Let me
whatever.
finish, and then
Sorry.
I'll give you time to respond. Whether you feel insulted or not doesn't determine if you have mental illness or not. Yeah. What determines if you have a mental illness or not is whether your ideas are consistent with evidential reality. That's what determines. So if you feeling insulted or me speaking in a particular way is irrelevant.
He could be wrong, but not mentally ill.
You are right. You are right, and
Well,
that is where.
based
And that
upon-
is where. One second.
Based upon my
No,
knowledge.
one second. Let me finish.
I don't know everything.
I'll
just
finish
based upon
something.
what I've-
I'll finish something, please, and then please. The gentleman is right. It's not just that one issue. If that is the only issue, I might excuse you. But believe it or not, every step of the way in Islam, every step of the way, it is the same story over and over and over again. Contra evidence, the entire religion is built. And that is where I am thinking, look, you can't have a person follow a religion thinking that it is going to lead him into eternity, where every single step of the way it's contra evidence. So I'm going to now give you time. So please, my dear friend, let me clarify what I said right at the start. Masjid al-Haram, the issue at Masjid al-Haram is at the very start of Islam. At the very start. If Masjid al-Haram story is bonkers, then Islam is bonkers. Islam has no merit whatsoever, regardless of everything else. And that is where I'm going to ask you again. What evidence have you got that anything was built in Mecca of today based on by Muslims? In your case, Abraham, you say Abraham. Speak about any other detail you want to speak about prior to the 7th century. Tell me how any shape of Islam existed before the 7th century.
So I don't have any direct references of any evidence before that. I'm just relaying to you what the Muslim understanding is of the history of that building.
No, what the Muslim claim is.
Yeah, sure.
Understanding
it's the Muslim claim.
Exactly.
But,
Claim is not
I'm not a
understanding.
historian. I'm just here
No, but this
because I
is the
wanted
very-
to. Well, no, I didn't come here to debate you. Initially, I just wanted to hear what you had to say about
Sure,
it.
sure.
I'm not here to challenge you on it. So,
Sure. But my
I
dear-
was interested to see what you had to say about it and whether or not. I understand that you claim that there's no evidence that that building was ever built by Abraham. That Abraham was never near that part of Arabia at all in
Yeah.
history.
So would you,
So-
can I please, no, I certainly appreciate you. So you saw the number of people who were surrounding earlier, and none of them had the courage to even engage in a sensible conversation like you, and I certainly commend you for that, and that is where I'm really a little bit hopeful about you. And may I please comment to you, my dear friend, I'm a Christian. I believe in solid history about Jesus. I've done my research and so on. Now, and that is where I'm going to comment to you, my dear friend. So I asked about Masjid al-Haram. You then went on to West Bank, remember? And may I please ask
that
you?
was just a jab because what you said about people invading people's homes and then claiming that they don't live there anymore and then excommunicating them. It's exactly
Sure.
what's happening to the Palestinians.
So let
in
me
the West
ask you
Bank.
this. Let me ask you
But
this.
what? But
Let me ask you one
relating that to what the Muslims did with the Kaaba and everything. But that's a different situation.
It is not.
Yeah, it
would
is
you
a
believe?
different
Would you believe it's the same situation? And I'll clarify
It's a
why.
different situation because, that's what's happened. That's like a historical event that happened where that building was made for a particular purpose, and it had been, that had been misused.
My
And
dear
so-
friend.
And it was, and there was a battle of ideologies going on at that time.
Can
Now,
I
obviously there
please
was-
clarify right
there
now?
was,
Let me please
All right,
clarify.
fine, yeah.
I'm going to demonstrate to you that what happened in relation to Masjid al-Haram, wherever that was. I'm not even concerned as to where it was. Whatever happened in relation to Masjid al-Haram, the same delusional claims are the claims in relation to the Masjid al-Aqsa, which is built over the temple, the destruction of the temple of Jerusalem. The same problem, the same problem. Not just Masjid al-Aqsa, but also, of course, the Dome of the Rock, And it's not just those two buildings, but the entire claim to the land of Israel. The same problem. Muslims, right at the start, did something to Masjid al-Haram, wherever that was, and they are doing that to Israel today, not just today, right throughout history. They have shown up there, and I'm going to ask you there, again, one poignant question. Do you have any evidence? You are a sensible man, and I'm really appreciative of you. Do you have any evidence whatsoever that connects any portion of Israel, today's Israel, any portion of today's Israel, do you have any evidence to connect that historically to people other than Israel, archaeologically? Any evidence, either archaeologically or literary history, any evidence whatsoever?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm not a historian, so.
But do you see, this is a very important point you need to consider, because if you, can you imagine, let me ask you one, very relevant to you. Do you own a house?
Not currently. I'm looking.
But you'd
yes.
like to, and let's say you
Yes.
rent a house, yeah.
Yes.
So you have your own home right now.
Yes.
If I knock on your home tomorrow, for example, of course, you return home tonight, this evening, and then tomorrow I show up and knock on your home, knock on your door, and say,
Yes.
"Hey, what's your name?" Okay, maybe I'll call you my friend.
Just yeah.
I say,
call
"Hey,
it
friend,
what you
this house doesn't belong to you," and you're like, "Oh, wait a second, I rent this property. I have an agreement with the landlord. I rent this property," and I say, "It doesn't matter. My Islamic Allah tells me this house belongs to me now. You get out. If you don't get out, I'll kick you, or I'll march on the street from your left door to from your left wall to the right wall. It all belongs to me." What would you think?
Well, no, that would be unjust to do that. But
Exactly.
is that what the Muslims did to?
And that is where I'm asking
is that
you.
what the Muslims did to
This
the
is
people
where
in Mecca? I don't think
exactly
that.
that.
I don't think they excommunicated.
Please
them for
don't
that.
say anything. Please, may I please? You said you don't have evidence so far. When you don't have evidence, don't think. Evidence needs to be at the bottom.
Well, I'm talking about the history of what happened to the Masjid al-Haram and what happened in Mecca after the conquest of Mecca, after the Prophet ﷺ had gone to Medina and established the Khilafah at that point. And then they had returned to Mecca and done so peacefully. And
What do you mean
with that
peacefully?
peacefully, they didn't go in there. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't destroy homes or anything.
Let me ask you
They
this.
took Mecca back, obviously under Islamic rule at that point.
Let me ask you this something, please. No,
But
if
they
I in
hadn't
friendly terms,
excommunicated
if
people
I
from their homes or anything.
if I in a very friendly term today, but very clear to you, in a friendly term, I threaten you enough to an extent. Tomorrow when I knock on the door, I have threatened you. Like the message is very clear. If I have threatened you enough clearly that tomorrow I knock on the door and make it appear as if it's friendly, and you look at me and you think, "Oh, this fellow is here."
Yeah, but you're
and I need
talking
to-"
about
Would that be
this
good?
was-
Now, so here is where
Well,
the
this
question.
is 1400
Let me. I'm
years
going to
ago.
ask a question.
But the
please
way
respond to
that
my question.
nations acquiesced
My dear
at
friend,
that
one second,
point
one second.
was
Let me
that,
ask you a question.
people had
Please
armies,
respond to the
people
question.
had-
Just one second. Just
It
one
was a
second.
different way
One
of
second.
establishing
My dear
nations
friend,
at
one
that
second.
You can't relate it to what's going on
One
today
second, please. Masjid
with like an
al-Haram, one
individual
second. My dear friend,
owning a
please.
house and everything.
Please. Unless we are
a different
focused,
situation.
unless we have a focused conversation,
Yeah, but I
it'll
know
be a
where-
rant.
I know
Please,
where
I'm
you're
going to
going,
ask again.
but-
Masjid al-Haram, when the Muslims took over, whether the Meccans in a friendly manner let that happen or not is irrelevant. The question is, who did that belong to? How did the Muslims suddenly think it belonged to them? And that is where friendliness, unfriendliness, without a fight, irrelevant. Question is, what evidence have you got that Muslims own that?
I'm saying that the Muslims claimed that that was where the first house of worship was.
In other words,
and
the
they're
mere-
returning it back to its original purpose and its original rule. And at that time, they did it in the way that all nations were established at that time. It was through, there was, if a nation and another nation, if an empire was to spread, or if any sort of, nation was to spread, there
It's
was.
not a nation, it's a religion of peace. isn't it?
Exactly. You see the problem? The gentleman very sharply highlights a problem. What you've just said? You have just established that Islam is nothing from God, nothing to do with morality, nothing to establish the pinnacle, the very standard of what is morality, but is just like how any other military force would try to take over someone else's property. That's what. Please, my dear friend, my dear friend. Here is where
that was done.
which means
That's not how
Islam is
Christianity-
not. Which means Islam.
Christianity has done that too.
No, my dear friend,
Yes.
my dear friend, Islam is not fit for purpose. It is not from God. It is merely like any other morbid hatred military regime trying to take over someone else's property. That's pretty much what Islam is, and that is where
That's
I
a
asked
huge
you the.
oversimplification of that, though.
But
isn't
you
it?
haven't so far given any evidence, any whatsoever, and that is where I'd like to comment to you. When you go home, please try and look up. If you still, take 10 hours, take 2 days, maybe take 1 week, but if you do not find any historical evidence, if you do not find dating prior to the 7th century, which will earmark Masjid al-Haram, wherever that was, as Islamic property, then you would need to concede and say the very basis of your religion is flawed. We spoke about Masjid al-Haram, I mentioned about Israel, but believe it or not, it didn't stop there. Would you believe? Muslims are walking around in our nation today, even including in our park right now, Speaker's Corner, deluded to think that every place of worship in the UK should be Islamic. Whether by hook or crook, they are determined to take over. We see the evidence of that, the ripples of this happening. Someone being killed just a couple of days ago in Sweden. Number of, some young boy folds a paper of the Quran up in somewhere near Sheffield, and then there is massive threats just a couple of years ago, a year ago or something. So today, Muslims are walking around with the same delusion, and I can show you where the delusion comes from. It comes from the Quran.
That's not all Muslims in the UK. that think this stuff.
So let me ask you a simple question. Do you as a Muslim think UK should become Islamic?
I don't care either way. If
No,
it
I'm
is
asking, please. Okay. So do you know what the Quran says about what should happen to the UK?
to what should happen to the UK
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
The Quran doesn't mention the UK specifically.
No, the Quran mentions about every Jewish and Christian settlement,
Right,
and
if-
therefore
if-
which includes the UK.
If a
Do you
people
know
is
what?
peaceful towards Muslims, then we don't have any. There's no.
Excuse me,
there's
who
no-
are you to determine anything here? I'm asking you.
Well, no,
do
you're
you know
asking
what?
me a question.
Yeah. You know what I would answer? If I were following some other religion, I would say, well, this is your land, who am I? That's what I'd say. But do you know what you said?
How much are you paying today on
Right,
this sunny
right.
day?
Good. Thank you.
How
Keep
much
it.
are they
Thank you
paying
much.
him to spread hatred?
Just one second.
Because a man of God does not
Just
spread
one.
hatred, but rather love. But everything he uses hatred.
So let me.
Just know.
let me
anyone
ask
that
you
comes
this.
and stands and speaks
Don't-
hatred is being
answer
paid.
his question is not fit.
No, he doesn't. He has been suffering from COVID for many months. Look
This
at
guy,
that.
Aki's
Look at
video
it.
that's subscribed to
Suffering
him.
from
friend,
COVID
this
for
guy
how
was
many
doing
months?
very
Is
well.
he going to
My
answer?
friend.
This guy was doing so well.
I only came here like I was interested to hear what you had to say about
My dear
Muslim
friend,
Brotherhood.
I
I'm
would
not-
really.
I'm not like, I didn't come here claiming that I'm a knowledgeable Muslim or like a knowledgeable historian that was going to be able to like counter it.
Sure. But my dear
I
friend,
just wanted to just.
my
have a
dear friend,
discussion and just-
can I please? Let me please tell you this very simply.
He's a hater.
Can I?
He will put the title about you, bad title about you, and he will show you badly. If you are not able to answer the question, if you don't have knowledge, you should leave, brother. Leave the other. Here you can see his video is just only a hate preacher, and that's it. Please go.
You see,
Well,
so
I-
that
I don't-
gentleman,
He was doing very
that gentleman, like I said.
I mean, I've already said that I don't want to be on camera, that I don't want to have my face online or whatever video. that you're-
No. I said don't worry, and you were quite willing to have a conversation,
Yeah.
based on which we went ahead.
Yeah.
Please let me put it this way. If a religion, that gentleman over there, he's a troublemaker. We are keeping an eye on him. He don't align yourself with him, because any moment, maybe in the next month or a couple of months from now, he might be in severe problem. Don't even align yourself with him. Can I please say something to you?
Okay.
Please, my dear friend, you follow a religion. You think the religion is going to give you eternity with God, but you did not have basic answers to some of the very fundamental building blocks of the religion. Now, another gentleman who is a regular at the park comes here, and instead of helping you out, what does he say? He just gives you a warning to make you move away. In other words, Islam does not have anyone who is knowledgeable at the park to answer fundamental questions. Can I please comment to you?
Well, I'm
When you
just-
go home, please find out answers for the questions I've asked you. Would you do that?
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Lovely.
Yeah,
And
no problem with that.
Christian or Muslim?
one second.
No,
When you
are you a Muslim or a Christian?
excuse me, sir, please. I said wait a second.
No, a Christian
So,
or a Muslim?
are you? Do you
No,
have
are you-
hearing issues?
no,
Please
are
wait.
you?
So please.
Are you a Christian or Muslim?
Lovely speaking to you.
Please.
God's
Are
blessings
you a
to you.
Christian or
Speaking to
Muslim?
you too.
Yeah, I'd like to just insist.
Okay.
I'd like
Where
to
did
just.
that come from?
Are you a
Yeah,
Where did that come
I'd
from?
like to just. I'd just like to. I'd
Didn't
just
see
like to
that.
reiterate. You are a lovely man, and I genuinely think you can
Are you a Christian or
leave
Muslim?
the system of delusion. This is a mental illness.
you can't
Sooner
answer.
rather than later. Sooner
If you
rather than
can't answer
later.
that question,
I'm
how
very
can
honest
you-
with you. We are working on historical details. We are working on theological details. I have been studying this book for a number of years now, right now,
Have you
working
studied
on
the
a few
Bible?
different books.
Have you studied
And
the
we are
Bible?
working. I am personally working, and I know
Have you
many
studied
others
the
are
Bible?
working
The Bible, have you
to
studied the
get
Bible? Do you
Islam
understand the Bible?
categorized as a
Do you
serious
understand the
mental
Bible?
health
You
emergency.
don't understand
And
the
therefore,
Bible.
I'd really like to comment to you, my dear
can't-
friend.
you
Please
can't
leave
preach the Quran if
ASAP.
you
But
don't
do your
understand the
research.
Bible.
Based on reason,
Do you
based on
understand the Bible?
evidence, when you are convinced
Oh,
as to
that
what I
is-
said is true, please.
That is
You can
gibberish.
email. Can I give you my email address?
Whichever. Oh,
Please.
you got a card, okay?
Yeah, I've got a card.
Fine.
Yeah, if when you want to have a private
fine.
conversation, don't tell anyone. To everyone else, your fellow Muslims say that you're not going to get in touch. with me.
Secrets, because
But
you are
please get
afraid.
in touch, and it'll be nice to speak to you. God's blessings.
Oh, it was good to talk to you.
Love-
Touch now.
It was a pleasure speaking to you. God's blessings.
Are you a Christian?
God's blessings.
Are you a Christian?
Would you like to have a conversation?